Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Kayla, and I release new videos every Monday about all things BPD and mental health. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, as well as the bell notification up top. Today, we're going to be talking about something interesting, which is this concept or tool of reparenting ourselves. If you experience trauma, neglect, abuse in your childhood, then there's good odds that you never learned how to develop a secure attachment, not only to your primary caregivers, but also to yourself, which is probably impacting your capacity to let yourself be in secure and healthy relationships as an adult. And this is where reparenting comes in. We're going to talk about what it is, how to do it, and how it can help. In a nutshell, reparenting is the act of giving yourself all the things that you did not get as a child. So whether that's love, respect, compassion, understanding, caring, attention, this is what reparenting is. Your wounded inner child, you might not recognize the patterns, but it might show up in your life through things like people-pleasing, perfectionism, difficulty setting boundaries, self-criticism, shame, pulling away from relationships, entering in relationships that are toxic. Whatever the patterns might look like, once you start to dig in, you might start to understand that this is actually a wounded and very vulnerable inner child that needs to be reparented, loved, and cared for. When growing up, there are 4 essential skills that we are supposed to learn from our primary caregivers. The first one being love and respect. So evidently, we're supposed to learn from our parents, grandparents, whoever was the main figure of authority in our lives, that we should treat ourselves with compassion and love and respect. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the skill of having self-belief, self-confidence. This is teaching kids that it's good to be courageous and take risks and to believe in yourself, that even though things might not work out sometimes, you have resiliency and capacities within yourself to overcome the adversity. Thirdly, we're supposed to learn emotion regulation from our primary caregivers. We're supposed to learn how to name emotions, talk about emotions, how to deal with them effectively. And lastly, we are supposed to learn effective communication skills, meaning assertiveness skills, setting boundaries, not people-pleasing, all those things. So when you look at the 4 skills, the 4 things that we should learn, right, from the primary caregivers, most of us don't. This is where the wounded inner child can come in, and if they didn't get the love, if they didn't get the self-respect, if they didn't get the communication skills or emotion regulation, at this moment as an adult, then it becomes your own responsibility to teach yourself those core skills. So the first step when it comes to reparenting ourselves is to learn what we missed in our childhood. So you can take a second to scan your life, whether that's through journaling, therapy, just taking a moment even during this video, pausing it to reflect on your life. What did you miss when you were a child? Was it physical touch? Was it proximity to your parents? Was it emotional proximity? What did you miss? What were you stripped away of? And when you start to look at those things, you can then start to ask yourself, how does this play out now in my life? When something happens, how do I deal with difficult emotions? Do I suppress them? Do I blame myself? Do I blame others? How has this impacted my core concept about myself? Do I have negative body image? Do I have a fear of abandonment? So it's taking a moment to look through your life, asking yourself, what did I miss when I was little? And how is this showing up in today? The second thing to do once you have investigated your past and your present self is to connect with your inner child. We live in a society that tells us and forces us to grow up. It assumes that just because we're adults that we're not vulnerable and we're not these scared little kids anymore. But I will tell you that what happens with abuse in whatever way or neglect that it looks like causes trauma. And trauma causes us to stay frozen in that moment. Meaning that if you have experienced trauma, whether big T trauma that we call it, so more of this classical connotation that we have a trauma, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, or little T trauma, which is essentially just not having your needs met in the moment as you needed them to be, there's good odds that there's a part of you that is frozen, stuck in that moment, and that needs healing, that needs to be acknowledged. And so in this second step, it's really to connect and acknowledge that there is a part of you that is a scared inner child that needs to be seen, and just giving it the space to exist, to be here with you today. The third step is to work on letting go of the burden and the shame that you carry with you. Asking yourself, would I really treat or speak to a child in the way that I'm responding to my own inner child? And when you can have that realization that, at least I hope that you wouldn't berate or yell or abuse a child, then why are we doing this to ourselves? And if we can imagine, right, if you can picture, close your eyes and picture what is showing up for you, how old this child looks like, and visualize yourself in that age space. Try to see yourself for the vulnerable, scared child that you were, and to take away some of this shame that you've been carrying, and recognizing that those things were not your fault, and that you can start giving this child a bit more love and recognition as it deserves. Fourthly, we want to learn the skills that our parents did not teach us. And so this is where these groups, whether DBT groups or therapy groups or support groups, are really, really helpful. It's taking that time to learn those skills that we all need as human beings. We learn how to communicate effectively and set boundaries for yourself and to stop people pleasing. Self-compassion is one of the tools that I would hope that parents teach their children, and if unfortunately you did not learn that for yourself, self-compassion is a fantastic tool to learn how to reparent yourself. It allows you to build a secure relationship within yourself so that you can feel more secure in healthy and stable relationships in your adult life. And lastly, we want to fulfill the needs that our parents could not. And so it's once again diving into yourself and recognizing the needs that we all have. We all have needs for love. We all have needs for closeness and proximity and dependency on others. And when you can recognize those within yourself, not only in yourself, but as a human being, that we all need those things, we can start then to give ourselves the things that we want and need in life. And once again, like I mentioned, self-compassion, this is fantastic, that we can start to provide ourselves with the love and nurturing that we maybe didn't receive as a kid. Overall, reparenting yourself allows you to heal the wounds that you experience in your childhood. And while this may be a slow process, if you're patient and kind and open and receptive with yourself, you will see that you will start to feel more secure, more stable, more nourished and balanced within yourself, which will ultimately allow you to live the life that you were meant to live. On that note, thank you so much for once again sharing your time with me today. I wish you all the best week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.